Substack has given our favorite comic book writers and artists the opportunity to have absolute creative freedom. Today we're going to talk about two different brand new titles and whether I recommend that you check them out or possibly grab them when eventually they're available on a Kickstarter. Hello everyone and welcome back to Married with Comics. We have so many amazing things that are going on right now. So we have the 500 subscriber giveaway. We have an upcoming challenge. If we can make 1,000 subscribers by October 29th, I will be working collaboratively with the Kraken Sword to make it worth your while. So let's just say, if you thought this was impressive, you are going to be gobsmacked at what will happen if we can reach 1,000 by the end of this month. According to our stats, 50% of people who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So all it takes is clicking that button. Please, for those of you that are already subscribed, please continue to like these videos, comments. Everything that you're doing is really making a huge difference in helping us grow. We really appreciate it. Last announcement is that we are about to start our 31 comics of Halloween. Everything's going to start on October 1st. We're going to do a little bit of a behind the scenes, and then we're going to start jumping into the titles. Everything's going to be broken down into categories. So we're going to talk about vampire comics and monsters and demons, and then we will end the month with The Crow. So it is going to be an incredible month, and I can't wait to have you along for the journey. Substack technically started with James Tynion IV, which all of us know is the Eisner Award-winning, incredible writer. One of my absolute favorites. What Substack offered him was an opportunity to write anything that he wanted. And the difference was, with Substack, instead of the money going to DC, and DC gives a small portion of the funds to James Tynion for all of his hard work, and then pays out the team, and then of course DC claims royalties. Instead, all royalties associated with that title stays with James Tynion IV. He can choose his creative team, and like I said, there's no limit on what he can or cannot write. So when he announced that he was going to Substack, there were 3 different options. There's a free subscription, there's a $7 a month subscription, or you can do a yearly amount that's a little bit cheaper, or you can become a founder of the Tiny Onion Substack. Each one of the tiers entitles you to certain exclusives, and he was trying to certainly make it worth everyone's while to subscribe at least, or consider that founder's tier. I love James Tynion's work, so we definitely are subscribed. I am incredibly excited about the Substack content. Well, once James Tynion IV was having such success with people subscribing to his content, there were other people who have now transitioned over to Substack as well. Jeff Lemire, Scott Snyder, Scotty Young, Patrick Gleason, and there are so many more. The problem that I've run into is that if you're paying $7 a month for each one of these subscriptions, eventually that does add up. So the final catch with Substack is that as the writers are releasing their new series, you'll get either a chapter, a couple pages at a time, but it's all going to be in digital form. A lot of these writers have announced that when the series either kind of comes to a conclusion or there's maybe a full volume, that they will then transition over to Kickstarter and release it in a trade form. Most of these will not be released in an individual issue. There, of course, will be different tiers, and I'm sure those who are subscribed to the Substack will get some sort of exclusive, maybe a cover, maybe an additional something, or maybe they'll just get an early access to the Kickstarter. All that matters is you get your choice whether you're going to subscribe and at least be able to read as the content's being released and be able to give that immediate feedback directly to the author or the artist, or you're going to be waiting for the Kickstarter. So, 2 of the people that I'm following, James Tynion, of course, I have a paid subscription. Jeff Lemire, I have the free subscription. Jeff Lemire started a brand new series, as did James Tynion IV, and both of them presented the first couple pages sort of as a preview to then encourage subscribers. I've read them, and we're going to talk about them. Let's start with James Tynion IV. he announced early on that he was insanely excited to do this series called Blue Book. And it was going to be about UFOs. I think all of us have watched a couple of episodes of X-Files, and we at least are familiar, but typically stories about aliens are not always my favorite. So I was a little tentative and concerned that this was just going to be an interesting concept, but maybe not one I'm going to jump into and really want to get into the meat of it. When I started seeing the behind-the-scenes content that's available through Substack, where James Tynion is kind of answering why he chose this project, some of the subtle things that he's putting into the storyline, now actually I have a newfound appreciation for it. So the Blue Book is actually based on a historical event that took place from 1952 to 1969, and it is an actual report created by the Air Force of different unexplained events that took place and UFO sightings. So all of it is compiled into the Project Blue Book. So what James Tynion is doing is he is taking some of those stories and some original stories, and he's kind of creating his own Blue Book. The art is intentionally black, white, and blue. So that way you kind of focus in on the story, but then you get this sort of ominous quality to the storyline. When I first started reading it, I was like, okay, we're going to have a UFO sighting. What's going to happen next? James Tynion had actually released 2 different kind of excerpts from this same story. The first excerpt was good and intriguing, but the second one was the one that kind of caught me. So if I'd only read the first part, my review right now I think would be a bit more negative. The fact that I got more information and now I start caring a little bit more and now I'm wondering what's going to happen next, that's changed my perspective a little bit. So I am seeing how this is becoming more of a full-fledged story and less of a this happened, that happened, ooh, scary UFO, we move on. The interesting thing about the story is that the chapters themselves are going to be designed to be about 10 pages long, and it will be a series of different, almost individual events, but all of them tie together into this main Blue Book theme. On the flip side, Jeff Lemire released his new series called Fishflies. One of the neat things about Substack is, of course, you get to hear sort of his intro and his history behind this story and how he's actually been working on this book for a very long time, just hasn't released it yet. And his intention is to create another Sweet Tooth. This is going to be approximately a 500-page book. So this is definitely not a very simple storyline, but I think in some ways that's what intrigues me because I really enjoyed Sweet Tooth and I've enjoyed a lot of his other stories. So we start the story with these 3 teenage boys and they're giving each other a hard time and they're headed to this gas station to get some ice cream. And then they see all these fish flies that are dead upon the road and they're sort of covering this whole gas station. And in order to get to the ice cream, of course, you have to cross the fish flies. And of course, 2 of the boys chicken out and one of them on a dare agrees to take off his shoes and step on all the fish flies. And then there's a twist at the end as soon as he actually gets into that little gas station, and I'm not going to release it, but I will say it was a great hook. I don't know if any of you grew up around a major body of water. I'm from Ohio and I used to go sailing over on Lake Erie and the mayfly bodies and just heaps of these insects all over the place. It was insane. I have seen the extent of these mayflies in multiple other locations, but typically wherever there is a light source, that's where you see this sort of piling of bodies. And eventually it gets to a point where you can't actually see whether it's the concrete underneath, vehicles, if they're parked directly under a light. You just see everything sort of swarming to the light and then eventually just dropping dead right there. And yes, there is an ominous crunch whenever you step on a mayfly. So as soon as he started, showing these fish flies, I immediately went back to childhood and seeing the very first, pile of mayflies. And to know that Jeff Lemire is now going to take these fish flies and give them some sort of ominous quality. As soon as I found that idea And then the hook at the end, absolutely. I am very excited for this series. As soon as there's a Kickstarter, I am definitely going to be buying it. And that series, I was actually more excited for than Blue Book, even though I love James Tynion IV and all of his writing. If I could afford both subscriptions, I would do it. Because that series that Jeff Lemire is creating, and he's doing the art, of course, there was something that definitely grabbed me in just on those first couple pages. He's going to be releasing about 5 pages every week. That one I am insanely tempted to get, but budget necessitates that I can only do one, so I'm sticking with James Tynion. But if you have the option, or if you see the Kickstarter for Fishflies, when it comes out, I'll definitely let you know. That one I would definitely grab. Blue Book, I'm very intrigued with. Because these individual stories, I think it's going to be really intriguing to see what all he kind of builds into this original idea of a Blue Book. There are different series that James Tynion is planning. This is just one of them. But I will say, as a person who's not a huge fan of the UFO alien sighting stories, I'm still definitely going to continue reading. So my question for you all is, have you even glanced at Substack? Which story would you be more interested in? Or are you just saying, you know what, I can't do the Substacks and my single issues and my trades, I'll wait for the Kickstarter, but great for all these amazing writers and artists to start their own kind of campaign for themselves and be able to create these amazing stories. This is Laura from Married with Comics, and I will talk to you all again very soon, but please don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, great things are coming. Have a wonderful day, everyone.